What's a railway without locomotives? Very quiet. We've looked at the building of the line, so I suppose it makes sense to talk about the engines that used to work it. Everyone loves a steam engine. No, really. The writer Adrian Vaughan once described them as the nearest to a living thing that man ever made. And he's right. They hiss, they sigh, they creak and they rattle, and any child and engineman knows, when they're working hard, they talk. Engines on the Watercress line do a lot of talking, mainly because for half of every journey they're working uphill. Now, how does a song go? Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. When the line opened in 1865, the London and South Western Railway was responsible for running the trains. Sadly, there was no one to write down the number of the locomotive that pulled the very first, but it was most likely one of Mr. Beattie's Venue whale tanks. 3 of these engines went on to achieve their own immortality working on the Wenford Bridge Grant in Cornwall, and not being finally withdrawn until almost 100 years after the Watercress line was opened. Happily 2 survived, and have visited the Watercress line in recent years. It is certainly possible that one of them may have worked the line before. Almost every type of London and South Western Railway engine worked the line in the following years. This is because the line was used as a diversionary route for when the main line was shut, and could take the heaviest locomotives. The Watercress line was also used to run in locomotives, fresh from overhaul at Eastleigh. Up until the 1930s, many of the trains would be worked by one of the many elegant 440 tender engines, such as the T3, T6 and T9 classes. The last of the T9s was restored to working order on the Watercress line in the 1980s, but the longer trains of the preservation era led to it moving away, although it has visited a few times since. In the 1920s, H15s and U classes started to run over the line regularly. S15s also ran over the line occasionally, including our own 499. During the 1930s, the line saw a new breed of locomotive working over it. These were the powerful Lord Nelson type and the punchy schools classes. Today, thanks to them being loaned to us by the National Railway Museum, both Lord Nelson and Cheltenham are based here. Cheltenham is currently operational, whilst Lord Nelson awaits overhaul. The 1940s saw the famous Bulleid Pacific start to run over the line on mainline diversions. In fact, the first of Mr. Bulleid's locomotives to be built, 21C1, a locomotive that was numbered under the unique Bulleid style of numbering, was named Channel Packet on the 10th of March 1941, in a small ceremony held at Alresford. 21C5, Canadian Pacific, which was delivered 6 months later and perhaps travelled the Watercress line whilst running in, is now based on the railway. By this time, most of the local passenger trains were in the hands of the eponymous M7 tank engine, and goods trains were handled by the Class 700 black motors. Sadly, none of the latter were preserved, but we have had visits from the M7 tank in recent years. In the 1950s, passenger trains went over to Hampshire Unit diesel-electric multiple units, and one of the units that worked the line is now based here. The goods trains continued to be steam-hauled. By the 1960s, Ivet tanks like our own were in use on goods trains to Alresford. Standard Class 4s and 5s were also seen on the line, and we are lucky to now have one of each type based here. Also during the 1960s, the Merchant Navy and West Country Bulleid Pacifics became a regular sight for a time as the main line to Bournemouth was electrified. Sometimes the heavy trains had to be double-headed, and occasionally that led to the peculiar sight of one of the brand new Class 33 diesels leading a Merchant Navy steam engine over the Alps. Southern locomotives weren't the only type to work the line. Ivet tanks were built for the southern region by VR to the LMS design, and were not the only ex-LMS types to run over the line. Black 5s ran over the line reasonably often, on inter-regional workings. And Fairbairn tanks were allocated to the southern for a time and worked the Alton Eastleigh trains. Some Black 5s were allocated to the southern region in 1953 to cover for the bullied Pacifics, which were temporarily all withdrawn from service as cracks had been found in many of their wheels. And that leads us up to the date when the line was closed. Since preservation in the 1970s, the railway has seen a lot of locos visiting that never were seen during working life. Most famously, of course, Flying Scotsman, but we'll talk about that in another video. We're lucky on the railway to now have 4 home locos that originally could have been working the line. We have 41312, the Ibert tank, built for the southern region by BR to the LMS design to replace the older worn out types. 925 Cheltenham, one of the school's classes. 76017, a standard 4, which for a long time was allocated to Eastleigh Shed. And 506, one of the S15 classes synonymous with the heavy trains between Southampton and London. And of course not forgetting our diesel fleet. Now, since these engines are special to us and they have their own story to tell, we're going to give them their very own episode later on. But for now, the $1 million question, a question that pops up all too often. Which is going to be the next loco to be completed? While Canadian Pacific is looking like the next one, it is currently being reassembled at the very place it was built, at Eastleigh. The boiler is being worked on at Rockley, and it will be the first new inner firebox installed in a merchant navy for over 60 years. An amazing achievement. After that, well, Swanage is currently in the works, but that overhaul is taking a lot more work than anyone could have envisaged. We're hoping to start Lord Nelson very soon, and our friends at the Uri Locomotive Society are hard at work on their loco number 499. So it's all to play for, anyone's game. That's it from us this week. If you would like to support the railway in this difficult time, then please visit watercressline.co.uk/support. Or if you prefer, you can donate £10 now by text. Just text Watercress to 70085. Text costs £10 plus your standard network rate. Apart from that, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time for Things You Now Know.